Hi, I'm quite excited because I think I might have solved the problem with the overheating. I don't know for sure yet. Now, as previously discussed, I've done a load of things to this. I've bled the system, didn't have a lot of coolant in it when I dumped it all out, but I've changed the radiator, I've changed the water pump, I've changed the thermostat housing, done all of those things that needed to be done in order to hopefully improve the overheating issue. But as previously said, it didn't make the blindest bit of difference, still overheating. Someone even suggested taking the thermostat out, bypassing it all and just putting the housing back together and seeing whether you could run it. Unfortunately, you couldn't get it to seal properly. It was just leaking water everywhere. So I've had to go and bite the bullet and get another thermostat. Now, the one I even ordered off eBay is very much looks like this. And it said it was suitable for this T25. Now, the one I've just ordered from Just Campers, you can see that there is a definite height difference, and the inner bore is slightly different as well. It's thinner. Now I'm wondering whether the bigger one that was on there, as and when it was retracting, it wasn't retracting enough and not allowing a suitable flow of water, because it was obviously filling up the housing too much because it's a lot bigger. Could be that possibility, and I'm quite excited that when I fit this, hopefully that might improve it. However, what I am going to test just quickly, because this was really slow at opening, the other thing I'm going to test is, was this opening at the right temperature? And does the new one open that bit quicker? Now, if the new one opens that bit quicker, hopefully, again, that means that I'll be able to rule that this is the issue, put this in, put some more coolant in, run it all up, bleed it, and hopefully we'll get it going. You can see that's just started to open. So, that doesn't really help us. It was slow opening before, but I think what I'm going to do is have a go at putting the new thermostat in and seeing whether or not that is going to help us. And then fingers crossed. Fan's been running now for about 10 minutes, and the temperature is slowly creeping up. I guess the real test is going to be if it keeps going and keeps going all the way up to 3/4 where it was before. It might need further bleeding, but again, I don't know. It's a bit difficult to bleed it on your own. Hopefully you can still hear me over the engine. Needs topping up a little bit there. We don't appear to have any obvious leaks anywhere, not anymore. You can already start to feel a little bit of heat coming off the engine, which is a good thing because it means it's warming up. As we come around the front, I've loosened off the little bleed screw, but I'm not really getting much out at the moment. Back round the front, so if there's a load of coolant everywhere. If there is, that would indicate that it's starting to bleed. You can probably see there some little bubbles, but not much. Not as much as I'd want to see at the moment. Might be that's going to just take a little bit longer to bleed. I don't know how the temperature's heating up. Inside there, gauge moved a tiny little bit. Leave it on for a bit longer to see what happens. Now, as I filmed this in stages and we've gone through the different parts of it, earlier on I'd showed you that I'd swapped the thermostat out, hoping that that might do something to try and improve the overheating situation. I continued with the video and unfortunately managed to delete it all to show you. But the long and short of it now is that the engine did overheat. It went up to just well over 3/4. It didn't get to the point that we're blowing pipes, but steam coming out everywhere, but we're not far off it, and the engine felt incredibly hot. I bled the system again, trying my very best to see if I can figure out what was going on. Still nothing. I had done a compression test, which was the first time I've ever tried to do one. One of those little devices. Got some very strange readings. 130, 130, 130, and I think one was 140, and the book's saying that around that mark it should be about 140, and if it's below that then there's likely to be issues. But then again, you go onto the forums and then you get all this difference in pressures and sensors, and actually 120 is okay. So I don't really know what I should or shouldn't be doing there, but I thought what I'd try and do was bite the bullet and buy one of the compression tests. So here I've purchased one of these, whereby it comes with a little tube, the fluid, and the rubber pung, with the hope that I can plonk that in there, like so, put that in, put some fluid in it, and then what I'll do is put it in the top of the expansion tank with a view to see whether or not it is or isn't going to overheat. That's the plan moving forward now. Now, from my point of view, you end up in this little world where you think to yourself, I really want it to be the head gasket, really, 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 because then I think I've found the fault and it'll be great. However, if it is the head gaskets, then potentially that means this winter I know what I'm going to be doing, which will be dropping the engine out, and it could probably do with an overhaul anyway, because it's done about 175,000 miles. I've no idea what its life has been like, so it's not disastrous. That was going to happen at some point. I was just hoping that I might get a year or two of driving out of it first, but with the fact that the engine's getting so hot, all I'm going to end up doing is end up having to find a new engine at some point if I can't get the problem solved. So the next phase is, according to the little instructions on that came with it, because I did actually read them, which was quite entertaining, because there's only like 3 bits. The engine should preferably be warm, so I'm going to warm up the engine for a bit. Once it gets up to temperature, we'll then put the little device onto the expansion cap, and we'll see what it tells us. With that view of a 50-50, let's see what happens. Right, according to the instructions, all 3 of them, that should be about right. So we'll now give it a whirl and see what happens. So run that for a little bit, a couple of minutes, revved it up as it said on the instructions, and I think it's supposed to turn yellow. Better just check actually. I'm sure it said turn yellow. Means it's got an issue. Just changing the colour of the actual reaction fluid to yellow or green within a few minutes indicates a damaged head gasket. That's remained blue. So the good news is it's not the head gasket. The bad news is that I'm still none the wiser, and I think the only way I'm going to truly get to the bottom of this potentially is to do another complete flush of the whole system and see if there's anything clogging inside the engine. That's the only other thing I can think of at the moment in time. Yeah, problem still persists, it would appear. Awesome. So I spent another probably 2 to 3 hours constantly just bleeding the system, and I think I may have cured part of the problem. It would appear that there's trapped air in the system still, even though I had the coolant coming out the front of the radiator and I'd followed all the other procedure. It would seem that somehow there was still water trapped in there, and what I did to bleed the system was quite simple, and I'll show you now. I took this pipe off and I got one of those hand pumps, and I basically pumped air through here into this chamber. That then forced the fluid to go round, and I walked round and I basically ended up squeezing all of these pipes. Any pipe that I could would constantly be squeezed in order to try and force that air out of the system. For a little while I had the bleed valve open at the front, kept doing that, and then I clamped this off, this pipe here off, just ever so quickly to stop the fluid from coming back up here. Undid this, filled it right back up again, tightened it up, put the thing back on, and then took it for a drive. Now, what that resulted in, if I come round here, is, you'll see from here, hopefully. Oh, brilliant. Is the temperature gauge, while we were driving along, was roughly at halfway, just a little bit over on occasions. However, it did run a lot nicer. The engine still feels really warm, but according to the temperature gauge, it wasn't overheating like it's done before. So I suspect that there was just air trapped in the system itself. And then if I adjusted the heater here and had this blowing through, basically the temperature gauge would sit where it is now. So I suspect there's more air in the system, but that essentially was it. So if we come back here, to recap, essentially it was air in the system. So by pushing hand pump, push air through this cap here, that then built the pressure up, forced the fluid around the system, and then eventually I kept squeezing all of these pipes. If it was a rubber hose, I'd squeeze it, and I could feel that they were getting a lot firmer, which meant that they had more water in them, or coolant in them, and that was the theory behind it. So fingers crossed, that might be problem solved. But I now lead on to problem number 2, which will be for another video while I try and figure out what that is. You can see all that fluid there. I suspect that the brake servo is leaking under here somewhere. Yeah, there's the evidence there. So I'm now going to have to try and figure out how I'm going to fix that next bit, which awesomely will be another video.